Hey everybody. So I'm Rob Fletcher. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder of Quixote Consulting, and so happy we're all together today. And it is 1 p.m. East Coast time. I'm coming from Western Massachusetts, rainy day. And it's a pleasure to be inside and to be with all of you. We're talking about virtual teaming today. We're spending the bulk of our time on meetings, but we're going to have a question and answer period at the end. This is scheduled to go for 30 minutes, and I'm happy to spend lots of time afterwards answering any questions that anybody has. We're going to do webinar format for this. This is not so much an kind of our normal interactive virtual training. We're going to be really, you're all muted and we'll keep it that way, but please let's have an active chat in there, and you can put in your questions that you have at any point. And you can also put in any thoughts you have, any ideas. As we go through these things, thinking about meetings, there's going to be things that come up for you. And ideas or questions, I invite you to stick them in there. I will work on the questions at the end. And once we've got them, we'll work on them. We'll go through them. So today we're really focusing on the virtual aspect of team meetings. There are going to be some kind of classic things that are really, really helpful for teams when they're meeting, but the focus is on the virtual aspect of this. This is a small slice of our interactive meeting facilitation, meeting quest, learning how to do meetings, whether in person or virtual training. And so I picked some of the things that I think will be really helpful for you. And I'm going to go through the material probably much more quickly than I would normally. But you will be getting all the information afterwards. So take notes while we go, and let's have some fun. Let's get started. And so I'm going to click in there. Oh, before we move there, it might be helpful for you. This is two questions that you can think of and put in chat if you would like. And think about what's most important for you to get out of your virtual team meetings. And don't think about what's most important for this 30 minutes together, or 30 minutes plus, whatever it is. Think about, well, why do we have team meetings virtually? Obviously, they're virtual now because of COVID-19, but well, what would be great? What would be wonderful about that? It's helpful to think about that so you have somewhere to aim, and then also think about a pain point. Think about, like, there is something that is really decidedly unpleasant about your virtual meetings that you're part of. So think about what that is, and you can also put that in chat. So you can put as what's really important to me, and then what's something that really annoys you or frustrates you. It can be something small, it can be something really big, whatever it might be. Put it in chat. It's helpful to have those things so other people know, have a sense of that we're all in this together. And also it's helpful for you to know, what am I going to filter this material through? Because we customize everything for every group that we work with. And this is not customized. This is broad spectrum. This is trying to be as most helpful to everybody on the call as possible. So it's up to you to filter it through your particular situation. So it's helpful to think up front. We're going to be spending a lot of time, probably the bulk of our time actually, what do you do before a meeting actually happens to make sure that meeting is great? So one of those things is I invite you to think of 10 virtual team meeting agreements where you all decide ahead of time. One of these is to make video the default. Audio calls, it's just way too easy to multitask, way too easy for for other people on the team to be looking at other things, checking email, looking at laundry, doing laundry, making a sandwich, whatever it might be. Make video the default. We all need connection right about now. And then, do you mute or do you not mute? Do you mute everyone? Do you selectively unmute? Here's the pros and cons. So obviously for this webinar, this is really a bit more information from me to you. So it makes sense to mute everyone. It helps everyone's experience to just really focus on that. But when you're in a team meeting, you balance that participation, instant participation aspect with annoying dog in the background, or somebody's chewing on something, or your baby's yelling, or there's stuff going on in the background, or whatever it might be. So you've got to decide as a team. You can try different things. If you don't mute everyone, then obviously everybody has to really be cognizant that they're making noise, and if they're making noise, but that also invites more participation. So you decide. If in doubt, if you're getting, put it this way, actually, let's just go back to that. If in doubt and you're getting burned out from meetings, like just mute everybody and then see if there's a way that you can selectively unmute. Participation expectations, the number one thing is no multitasking. Just be right here, right now. And that's why it's helpful to have video to back you up on that. Make sure that everybody introduces themselves at the beginning, and it's especially helpful in this time where we're feeling isolated, that you give some personal tidbit. Doesn't have to be a big major deal. It can just be something you ate, where you're from, something amusing that's happening and at home, whatever it might be. Personal connection, we need it. We really hope for that in the world, and team meetings are an opportunity to do that. That is not time wasted. When tech isn't working, speak up quickly, either in chat or audio. So if you're not hearing somebody, let people know. Don't just be like, well, somebody else will figure that out. And then you go first. Be generous. Go first in chat to start the ball rolling, so that it's a team norm where we are just going to generate things, that we're going to speak up, that we're going to help each other out, that we're going to make this interactive. And take turns. The number one most annoying thing that people have for virtual team meetings is people overlapping with each other, speaking at the same time. It's a little challenging to get used to, but it's helpful to know that this is something that is, we're going to have to work it out. Everything else not meeting related is on do not disturb. So it can be do not disturb literally on your phone. You turn off your, go full screen with your call. You turn off your email, your notifications. You put on your noise canceling headset so that your family knows, okay, mom is at the table, at the kitchen table, but it is do not disturb time right now. Or you close the door, or you have a handmade do not disturb sign. But some way for you to know that you're just going to focus on this meeting, and for everybody else around you to know that don't disturb that person. And remember, we're in this together. These are 10 agreements that if you can put these in place, if you don't do anything else, that's going to be helpful. It's going to move the team meetings in a better direction. So I'm going to play devil's advocate for a while and give you some ideas about why you shouldn't have a meeting. Why wouldn't you have a meeting? So number one is there's way too many meetings. It's the number one pain point. And this is in-person pain point, not virtual specific. Average time in meetings, 5 hours a week, 4 hours preparing for them. And the higher up you are on the org chart, the more meetings you're going to be in. And your people are getting work done right now. You get more work done from home. You have more opportunities to focus, barring family stuff and things like that. But the research shows that you get more work done from home. So is it worth it to pull away everybody for some status update meeting that could be done more easily in some way? You need a clear, strong purpose for the meeting. And if it is one way, if there's no need for it to be interactive, if someone is just giving an update and you don't need to hear from anybody, it doesn't need to be a meeting. Send a video, send an email, whatever you need to do. If it doesn't need to be in real time, or you can just say, hey, just watch this, just listen to this. You don't need to have a meeting. Scale back the meeting so that people can get the work done. Conversely, here's why you should have a meeting. If the necessity, the urgency is high, if you need some conversation. So for example, you need clarity, conflict is showing up in emails, those emails are getting shorter and they're moving faster and faster and faster, then you got to stop it and you bring in the team meeting where you can see each other, where you can talk these things out. And if there's a feeling of isolation, this is so new for so many people that there is an unprecedented amount of isolation. I'm hearing that from my coaching clients, that whether it's they're new to it or they're managing teams that are brand new to it, and they need help figuring out how do we feel less isolated. One of the ways is a team meeting. It can be about formal stuff. It can be about informal stuff. It can be both. If you can have meetings about two different things. But when isolation is showing up, have that meeting. This next is global team specific. And so I know from looking at the people that are on this call, there are some global folks. And then there are some people that are right here on the East Coast, and their team is local and working from home for the first time. So this is just interesting, fun tidbits, things to think of for you time zone wise. Number one is share the pain. And so somebody is going to have an uncomfortable time in the day where there's a meeting. If you have people in Asia, Australia, San Francisco, East Coast, Germany, like somebody's not going to be happy. So don't always have the meeting the same time every week. Switch it up so somebody is sharing the pain. And then you find the sweet spot. So I picked 1 p.m. East Coast time for a reason. This is the sweet spot for it is during the day on the West Coast and is still not too late in Europe. So I'm sorry if anybody's here on Asia. I don't think we have anybody from Asia or Australia. That it gets real kind of messy for that. So find that sweet spot for your team. And then the bonus is to speak in their time zone. So when I'm talking to a client, when I'm emailing, when I'm talking with them, if they're in Mountain Time, I say Mountain Time. If they're out on the West Coast, I say Pacific Time, and I say the time. But make sure that you say the time and you say the time zone so that they're aware of it. I even do this with my sister who lives out in Western Canada. I say, let's talk at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. It's just helpful. It's just a nice little thing to do. So here's a little snapshot on time zones. So we started this at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. At this same moment, 7 a.m. in Hawaii time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 11 Mountain, 12 Central, and that's earlier. Now, later this day, we're in Brazil, then we're at 5 after work in UK, in Western Europe, Africa, Greece, Brazil, Russia, Middle East, India, and then my favorite, it is 10:45 p.m. in Kathmandu, Nepal, when it's 1 p.m. in the US. And then the last one is it's tomorrow in all these time zones. So it's not even today, it's tomorrow. So I'm picking 1 p.m. So if somebody in China wanted to be on this, they'd be up at 1 a.m. Not pleasant. So you got to figure out a way to share that pain. And then the thing that complicates it, I was just figuring this out with my friend in Denmark. We had to, because the US now has daylight savings time earlier than a lot of other countries that have it. So for example, Europe, North America, New Zealand, Southern Australia, most of South America has it, but Africa, Asia, also much of South America does not have it. In the US, Arizona doesn't have it. And so it's lots of different things to figure out while you're doing that. So that's a little bit of advertisement for just being aware of the different time zones. So let's talk about tech. Here are some ideas that I think will be helpful for you. Number one, most important, this is big picture. It is worth it to invest your time and energy up front to figure this stuff out. It is worth it to be really fluent with this language of technology. This time spent now is the time to do it. It's not over the next 6 months slowly. There is a sweet spot of kindness with people, of team members, of not knowing what to do, because we're all in this together. 6 months, that is not going to be here. We're going to be really annoyed when it's still 5, 10, 15 minutes into a call figuring out how to do it. So it is worth it. You are going to get dividends from doing that. And then you figure out what functionality do we need for this meeting to be a success. Is it primarily just us seeing our faces and talking and hearing each other and seeing each other? Great, that's what we figure out. If we need to use a whiteboard for simple stuff, great, figure that out. If you need a whiteboard for more intricate stuff, you figure that out. And if you need, for example, to work on a document together, figure that out. So for example, Zoom is easiest and most intuitive to use. And there's a reason why. You've heard the word Zoom, you've been on it. I just got my 85-year-old mother on it on a call. And so if she can do it, anybody can do it. So love you, Mom. But so Zoom is easiest and most intuitive to use. But there are lots of different options out there. If you just need to talk face-to-face, you could potentially use FaceTime. If everybody has company-issued iPhones, you can put, I think, up to 32 people on there. But then you also have to figure out, are there firewalls in place? So for example, with some companies, when I'm doing virtual training, I can't use Zoom because Zoom is blocked in the firewall. And then use more than one tool in conjunction with Zoom, potentially. Doesn't mean you have to, but you can use Zoom and you can use, for example, Zyteboard for more robust whiteboarding type things. Or you can use Google Docs if you are editing a document together. So you can see each other, but you can also see the document. A little more complicated, but you can do it. So the second tool is determined by what are you working on together. Then the next thing to think of is who are the tech MVPs on your team? And they could be two different people. Number one, it could be people that just love the tech and are used to it. And number two, it could be people that have worked from home for a long time. So I am not a tech MVP, but I have definitely worked from home for off and on 20 years. So I've had to use the technology more than many people. I work with a number of teams that have been completely virtual for a decade or more. And so they are really up to speed. So it can be the tech MVPs on the team, or it could be somebody else. And then you have a backup plan for tech issues. If Zoom doesn't work, if Wi-Fi goes down, if something happens, there's a call-in number, for example, with Zoom, you can use that. So you have a backup plan. So take a second. What's your technology question or suggestion? And write it in the chat. Think about what's a suggestion or a question. So what I have found from doing this, this presentation with different groups is that everybody either has a question or a suggestion. So if you got something that works that's helpful, then stick it into there. The question, and I'll answer some of these questions right now. What is the whiteboard program you mentioned? It's called Zyteboard. I think it's called Z-I-T-E board. And Margaret is helping us out in the chat. Margaret, if you can make sure that that is the right question or right name, you can put it right in there. And I will keep going, but feel free to stick more things in chat as we go. So AV, there are a couple things to think of. We are not going in depth with them today. We're going to go in depth in them in 2 weeks from today, where I'm going to be doing effective virtual presentations. So in 2 weeks, we're going to go in depth and we're going to be hands-on. We're going to try some things. We're going to try figuring out the camera, how this works, and then also the microphone, the lighting, and the background. So those are your 4 things to really think about when you are going to be on a virtual meeting. So we will go in depth more in 2 weeks. Don't want to get into it now because we got lots of other things to do and help you with. But those are things to think of when you're getting on. And then the big one is to test it. Test it repeatedly. I am on Zoom or GoToMeeting. That's another popular one that people use. I'm on one of those, or GoToWebinar. I'm on those a lot. But Margaret and I, for example, got on this morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, tried this stuff out just to make sure, tested everything, reminded ourselves how everything worked, so then it goes smooth. So you don't test it when it's during the meeting, for example. Test it all out on your own, try it out, get more comfortable with it. So here are some ideas for your agenda. These work for any agenda, whether it's in person when we all get to go back together again, but especially with virtual, it's really important. Keep it short. People get fatigued being on video all the time. Make it short and have it be less items on there. But at the same time, keep it precise. So less items doesn't mean talk about team stuff. There, it's short, we got one item, let's do it. Like, keep it precise. And then if you can, team source the agenda beforehand. Ask for input from people. Find ways that you can get people involved so that they feel like they are part of the agenda. And then have the timing on the agenda as well. So you don't have to do it by the minute. Some people like go out of hand with this, I think. You can just do it in chunks. But you definitely, like, guaranteed we're not going past this time. Like, we're not going past, you know, I'm not, put it this way, here's an example. I guarantee that we are not going to be still doing this material before question and answer starts at 1:30. Like, I'm going to be guaranteed that we're going to finish by 1:30 with the bulk of the material, so that people that need to go can go, and the people that are happy to stay on and ask questions can do that. So that's an example. Now, information ahead of time. What do you give them? The calendar invite says what medium is being used. So I was talking to someone, and she was getting on the team meeting on FaceTime, and got on and realized, oh, this is a video call. I'm in bed. Hi, everybody. I'm in bed. I'll get out of bed. And so it's really helpful. People need to know to make sure that you're going to be, expected to be on video. So, no unpleasant surprises for anybody. And then attach the agenda. That's really helpful so that people can refer to it. Send out the agenda, ideally at least 24 hours in advance after you've team sourced it. But don't send the slide deck. This is, I think people are a little controversial. Like, if you're going to use a slide deck, my advice, this is not a rule, this is advice, this is a tool, this is a tip, is don't send the slide deck. People read much faster than they hear. But hearing is important for people to get it in. It's why podcasts are so popular. It's why audiobooks are so popular. It goes in a different way. You don't skip the good stuff. And so if you give them the slide deck, the PowerPoint slide deck, then people are just going to look ahead while you're talking. They're going to lose interest. But you help them focus by not sending the slide deck ahead of time. And then it's also helpful with the agenda is to have a roster of who's going to be on the call with roles sent out. This may be overkill for some groups, and you know who you are. Your daily meetings or something like that. You don't need that. But if you're doing weekly meetings and you're bringing in people, it's really helpful to remind everybody who everybody is. It is also really important during isolation time that's happening now is to do some icebreaker. I encourage you to do it all the time. This is informal team building. So I make a living doing formal team building, but I invite every team that I'm working with to do informal team building as well. So you can do a separate Slack channel. If you use Slack, you can do it in chat. We did a little icebreaker even on this webinar, and webinars are usually not that interactive, and it's for a reason. They're short. You're trying to get a lot of information to people. But to me, what I do is it's all about interactivity. It needs to happen. So trying to put little things in here. That's why I invite you to keep using the chat during this whole thing. And so it's some way or a topic for people to introduce themselves. So it can be hometown, where are they from, sport or activity that they like to do, something about their pets that's happening, food that they're eating, favorite food or food that they're eating. Can be lots of different things. Any fun little way to introduce yourselves. And then the question is, does the meeting leader start it or does someone else? And my invitation to you is to have somebody other than the meeting leader, because what you want is to have a potluck meeting. Potlucks, people have better opinions and memories of potlucks, dinners, than they do if they're going out to a great restaurant. Even if the food is not that great, it's because everybody joined in. Everybody did something. Everybody was, part of it. So here's some ideas. You'll get this in the follow-up documentation. So we're not going to go through these, but there's lots of different roles that you can possibly have. So you can either assign roles or ask for volunteers. 15 to 30 minutes before, you test the technology again to make sure. Don't test it 5 minutes before, because what if it doesn't happen? And then you begin the meeting. The leader is on early. I started this, a little more than 10 minutes early, and wasn't on to welcome everybody. But if this were a meeting that I was leading, I would be on with my face on, my audio on, everybody's audio on, to welcome people as they join. Because it's also another great way for people to say, hey, just show up and early, and we'll just say hi. Nice to see each other. Then the next important thing is you start on time, on the dot. So I know a good webinar, a good meeting or a good webinar is going to be because it starts when it says it's going to be. I was on a webinar the other week and it turned out to be good, but it didn't start until like 1. I think it was supposed to start at 1, started at 1:07. Not a good way to start things. You remember these things and then people show up later. You do a tech check to make sure that everybody can hear, everybody can see, and everybody can talk, and everybody can write and chat. Make sure everybody's camera is on. We don't trust no camera. So if the norm is video, make sure everybody's camera on and just politely remind that person to turn their camera on or help them get it on. Mute everybody or not. We talked about that already. But then the facilitator role is the traffic cop, to involve everybody, but not get into that #1 annoyance of people talking at the same time. And then make sure you got that icebreaker. Now you do this during the team meeting. Remember, no multitasking. Then you can break out. You can do breakout rooms with Zoom. You can't do it with GoToMeeting. And I don't know about some of the other technology, but with Zoom, you can do breakout meeting. And we're going to try that in 2 weeks with the virtual presentation, so people get to see what each other looks like and what their camera is, and get some feedback from each other. So you can do breakouts, so you can have conversations and come back, and then use chat or whiteboard in Zoom for simultaneously feedback. So virtual, it's tough. It's harder than being in person, but some things are easier. And virtually, it's way easier to get feedback from everybody. Everybody right now could write and chat at the exact same moment. It would all just show up and it'd be great. So you try for pauses between speakers so that you don't hop on each other like you would in person. And now here is a slide that I'm putting up just to tell you you're going to get this information. We're not going to cover this. Lots of ideas because you want people engaged. Here's tons of things that you can do. Not going through it, and you're going to get it right after this call, but there is tons of possible ways, and there's way more even than this, I'm sure. But that was just my one afternoon brainstorming. And how do you end it? You make sure you figure out follow-up. You schedule a standalone team connection meeting. Team building is the only goal. So this can be virtual coffee hour or happy hour or tea drinking or whatever it might be, whatever you want to do. You find some way where we're going to get together, and the only thing that we're doing is we are going to get closer with each other. We're going to practice physical distancing, but socially getting closer. You figure out what the roles are going to be. You thank everybody. And I will thank you in advance. We got a couple more minutes before we get to the question and answer. But in case I forget, thank you for being on this call. Thank you for being together and taking this time. And you smile, because smiles are contagious. And everybody needs a smile right about now. And you can ask for feedback. So for example, we're going to ask for you to fill out a quick survey after this, and really hope you do. It's really helpful to get that information, and helps us do the best possible work we can. And then most important is you end on time. You end on the promised time. And you can stay later to talk with each other and let people know, be like, hey, we're going to spend some personal time on this after this. But we, the time is coming. We're going to end this now. And you can stay on if you want. So what do you do after? You follow up on what was decided, because if you had a meeting and you decided stuff, it's important to actually follow up. This is where a lot of teams fall down. Again, don't send the slides. People don't like to read slides. Send an overview. And you don't have to do something as fancy as Margaret has put together for you, like a PDF with everything on there. But you can just write down notes, whatever, whatever is important from the slides. You can send the slides if you want, but my tip is to try not sending the slides. Send an overview and or a link to the recording. So we'll also, for example, for this, you're going to get a link to the recording. You're going to get the overview of the slides and then a link to the recording. So it is 1:30 on the dot. The next one is one that I hope all of you are on and that you let everybody that has internet connection know about, because this is not virtual specific. This is about you taking care of you to help everybody else. I'm going to go through, do a 30-minute zoom through of a lot of what I hope is really, really helpful resiliency material. That is the same time as today, 1 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, I can't translate for your time zone. I don't know where you are, but I know you're from all over. Resiliency, it's going to be, it's so important for us to find a way to not just bounce back from this, but to move forward. And you can learn about our virtual offerings. I've been doing virtual team building since 2002. So the technology has changed, but I've been doing it a long time. So we can do team building, we can do team development. Let's get now to the questions on here. And I'm going to go back up to the top and look through, and my apologies if I miss any of these questions. Okay, here we go. So how do you get a team more engaged in being heard when they can hide behind the fact that they are not seen? Sometimes seem like folks are just trying to get through the meeting. So there's two different ways and two different kinds of people. There are people that are just trying to get through life, and there are people that want to give the best that they can give, but don't have the opportunity to do it. So you can't do much about the people that are just trying to get through, except you can learn who they are. If you feel like, okay, these people are actually trying to get through, are trying to give something, but they're being blocked in some way. Some things to think of is, number one, is make video the default for everybody. This is the team norm. So that's one of them. Another is to do whiteboard feedback instead of chat feedback, because you can visually see everybody putting the feedback on there. So it happens all at the same time. And then there becomes a norm for, this is what we do. Teams like us do things like this. We all give feedback all at the same time. And then the other thing is to think of, is it the fault of the meeting? Meaning, do we really need to have this meeting? And if not, then maybe we don't need to have a meeting. Like one of the, an amusing things I saw is when this first started, it's like one of the things that people were saying was like, turns out that that meeting just needed to be an email after all. So if it does just need to be an email, then then they are just trying to get through the meeting. Another way is to keep the timing shorter. So an hour is too long for a team meeting. It is exhausting to be on. So that's that. Those are some ideas. And you can also look at how to increase engagement virtually. How to break out from the larger group to smaller group discussions and return to the large group. So thanks for this question. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the Giving the Virtual Presentation one in 2 weeks, the webinar. But if you want to explore that, the only way I know how to do that right now is with Zoom. And you have to enable the breakout room button, and then you can either do it automatically or you can do it manually. If you've never done it before, and I haven't done it much, it's just way easier to do it automatically. Oh, so one question about Sorry if my PowerPoint just went over. If you pair off into breakout rooms, then come back into the main room, does breakout rooms get the same pairs back, or does it scramble? You can either manually or automatically do it. So automatic, it's going to scramble every time. So if you do multiple times doing the breakouts, then you're going to scramble up. But if you are trying to get specific roles, so for example, you have cross-functional department, and you want sales to talk with each other, and tech people to talk to each other, you can have that, but you can book that ahead of time, but only in Zoom, as far as I know. I feel like they should give me a money for being an ad for Zoom. Let's see, thoughts on WebEx versus Zoom, any key differences? I've used WebEx when groups need to use WebEx, and I find it helpful. I find it robust. I find it not as intuitively easy to use as Zoom. So that's my 2 cents. I'm not like probably an expert in using the two different ones. The two that I've used the most are GoToMeeting and Zoom. And out of those, I appreciate Zoom more because it's just way easier for me and it's way easier for everybody else. But you use what you probably can use. So for example, I was just talking to somebody and they said, we have to use Microsoft Teams. I was like, well, then don't worry about learning about the other ones. Just learn about Microsoft Teams. Great. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, Zeitboard.com. So what's the best way to help people know when it's their turn to talk so they don't interrupt others? So there are some icons that they can do. There's icons where there's a hand raise on there. You can take a look. You can do a test meeting with a friend, basically, and just start one. And there's icons where like it's a hand raise, and then you can have either you, if you're facilitating, or a support person can look and see where the hand raise is, for example. And that's probably the best way, I would say. And then another way is you can have people line up and chat saying like who wants to talk next, and then you can look and chat. So some way where they let you know, but they're not letting you know audibly, or they're not being like, hey, or hey, you can do this, but not audibly, so that they're not interrupting each other. And let's see. Could there be an internet strength indicator? Many times people are dropped out due to video sharing programs. Definitely, there are ways to test it, and you can just find some, just Google like test my internet connection, and they'll tell you what the strength is, and they'll tell you whether that's good or whether that's bad. And then you can send a link to your team and say, check this out, try this out, and see. If there is the option between Wi-Fi and Ethernet cable, use the Ethernet cable, because that's going to get you there better, going to get you there faster. If you are having problems with dropout, then turn video off. Another thing to do is when you screen share, don't screen share your whole desktop, everything that's open and everything that's on there. It's very complicated. It's a lot of information to try to send over. Only share the program that you're using when you're sharing your desktop. Go directly to there. That really helps. And then here's a question. Is the person handling your chat physically with you, or just a part of your Zoom account? Just a part of my Zoom account. And so Margaret is on there. Margaret is my #1 teammate. We do everything together, and but not physically. We are an hour away from each other, and basically like she's handling the chat and not physically with me. You don't need to have somebody. You can enable other people to be hosts, or as long as people are chatting to everyone, then somebody else can, answer those chat things. Okay. Anything else? Lots of thank yous. You're very, very welcome. Great. Looking forward to the resiliency session. I am too. And I'm doing a white paper on communication. I only have 5 to 7 minutes. Any suggestions? I have tons of material. Less is more. Come up with like top 5 things in 1 minute for each, or top 2 things, or top 3 things. And so just like, don't try to stuff. I'm always warring with myself on these. And I think this is too much information a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, it's so hard. It's like your babies. Like you don't want to let go, but I have definitely taken out a ton of material that I would normally cover in a training, for example, probably like 70 to 80% of the material. And it's okay. People would rather just have a couple of actionable things to be able to put into play, practical advice, than to go just get overwhelmed with tons of things. Sometimes 5 minutes is too long. That is true. And you can just keep it shorter, keep everything shorter. You can do breakout rooms for 2 minutes. You can do breakout rooms for 60 seconds. Great. You are very welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for the appreciation. That means a lot to me, because this is me trying to help you as best I can right now. And right now, there's not a lot of work for me to do, paid work. A lot of companies don't have a lot of money, and that's okay. We're all going to get through this together. But one thing I can do is help you, and help you help each other, and help the teams that you're helping. And we'll just get through this together. We are all in this together, and looking forward to seeing and looking forward. Oh, I'm talking about staff meetings. That's right. Yeah, 5 minutes can be too long even for staff meetings. So looking forward to seeing you April 16th. That is 1 week from today, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And you will get, after this, you will get the resources, and pretty quickly afterwards, and a survey link. You can help me by filling in the survey. Even if you did it last week, I appreciate you doing it every week, if possible. And then once we get the link uploaded for the video, if you want to share it with your team or share it with anybody you care about, feel free to pass that along. And be well, be safe, get outside if at all possible, get some exercise, get enough sleep, and love the people that you love, and we'll see you next week.